and turn on our captions, and we are ready to go.
Thanks, Erin, and thanks for joining us, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about some ways you can streamline your grading in Brightspace. There are a lot of hidden tips and little tricks, if you know where to find them, that make your grading experience much more efficient and hopefully a little bit more pleasant. We have a series of things we're going to talk about today, but just to introduce myself really quickly, my name is Jamie Herron. My work here at SUNY is to help coordinate and provide professional development to our online practitioners, and this is part of that. Understanding the technology behind your teaching practice makes your teaching practice a little bit easier. Myself, I've been teaching online since 2003, and I've been an instructional designer since 2009. So I kind of bring those hats to these types of presentations. I'm currently teaching in Brightspace, and so um, I constantly play with Brightspace to see how I can do things more effectively, efficiently, always about efficiency here. So Aline, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. I'm Aline. I'm the Senior Instructional Designer at SUNY Online. I help faculty and campuses with online learning and best practices, but of course, technology is certainly part of that. I just joined SUNY Online this past summer, and before that, I was at SUNY Delhi, where I was the LMS admin, so combining both the pedagogy and the technology. But today we're only going to focus more so on the technology, but we will sprinkle in a couple of tips otherwise. Yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
Great. So to the next slide, we'll just share briefly with you our agenda, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do a quick interest poll, and actually, if we can get that shared right now, that's going to give us a heads up about which of the troubleshooting or gradebook issues that are most important to you as an audience, and we'll cover the top issues first and cover as many of the remaining as we possibly can in the session. The troubleshooting issues that we're going to post in this poll are the ones that typically go to the help desk that we see as instructional designers as questions a lot from faculty. And so we just want to give you the tools and the knowledge to kind of troubleshoot that for yourself should any of these ever arise. And honestly, they arise quite often. After the poll, we're going to be covering rubrics in Brightspace just really briefly, because an entire rubric session would take, an hour. The bulk of our session today is really going to be focused on grading in Brightspace, including the quick eval tool. If you haven't used it, we're going to change your life today. And talk about some of the other ways that you can provide feedback and do grading within Brightspace itself. All right, so I can't see the poll. Has that been shared yet?
I do not have the option, but if Erin, oh, wait, just kidding. Let me try this again.
We came in practice, but I think it's got to do with co-host and host roles, so bear with us,
I do
please,
see
just a
it. We
moment.
see it.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
fantastic. I see it now. All right. And so what we have here in terms of options are for troubleshooting scenarios, you have an in-progress quiz submission. That means a student has started a quiz or an exam but haven't submitted it, no matter where they are in the progress of that. If a student asks to retake a quiz, what do you do once the quiz has already been taken? What happens if a student requests an accommodation for, like an extended time, a different date, et cetera, et cetera? What do you do when a student has submitted after the due date for an assignment and they were given an automatic 0 on that? We can adjust quiz points for all students in the event you had a poor question. We're going to troubleshoot some grade dispute things. What happens if a student doesn't understand how the grade book is calculating, and then how to revise a quiz question after auto grading, and finally some standard troubleshooting issues in the grade book.
All right.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Aline. She's going to talk about rubrics.
Thanks, Jamie. So, Just as a refresher, many of you may already work with rubrics, but just as a refresher, rubrics are a scoring guide or chart with assignment criteria and levels of achievement or associated points. So we recommend using them, but also adding them into Brightspace because it helps students understand expectations. When you add it to an assignment or a forum, it's right there and attached. For grading, it makes it more objective and consistent, and it also makes it easier to check and address elements, and it can help with itemized scoring and providing specific feedback. So this is just one example that we have here, and we won't get into how to build them, but the general location where you can find them will be under course admin and then rubrics. So the actual avenue may vary by campus, but you'll always find it at least under course admin and then rubrics. To attach it to an assignment or forum, you will do that in the settings. So I'm just in a sample discussion, and under the evaluation and feedback section, you would expand this, and this wouldn't exist until you do add a rubric. And you have the opportunity to create a new one, or you can add an existing one here. And then it looks something like this, and it's attached to the instructions that students see. So we will walk through on how to grade with the rubric using Quick Eval, but I will hand it over to Jamie for the Quick Eval preview.
Thanks. All right, so if you use Quick Eval, could you post in the chat that you, or how about if you don't use Quick Eval? No, let's say if you do use Quick Eval, will you post in the chat that you use it? This will kind of answer a burning question I have. All right, so Quick Eval is a tool that, see, Karen, right? I know, this is why we are so similar. When I saw Quick Eval demonstrated in the Brightspace demo, I threw my hands up. I was so excited because it is a tool that enables us to see all of the things that need to be graded as long as they're tied to the gradebook in Brightspace all in one place, our discussions, our assignments, our quizzes. And it allows us to see all of our courses, all of the things that we have to grade across all courses. So you can look by simply a single course, or you can look across all of your courses at once. And it gives us a really quick glimpse of what it is that we need to look at and review. Maybe you have 15 minutes to grade something. Quick Eval is a way you can say, okay, I have some time. Where are my submissions that I need to grade today? And you go there. So, okay, great. So for Quick Eval, there are a number of ways to get to it. You can most likely get to it using the nav bar, which is a blue bar on your campus landing page. There might be a Quick Eval link right there. If you were to click that link from the campus level, it would take you to the multi-course evaluation tool. You can also navigate to it from within a course. So I am currently within my Heron training course, and I could go to my course tools, and if I scroll down, I see Quick Eval. You can also get to it from your course admin panel, no matter where the link is on your navigation bar. And by the way, we are in the SUNY Center for Professional Development's tenet of Brightspace, so this is, it might look a little bit different in terms of what links are available on the nav bar, but guaranteed there is access to Quick Eval. It's on your campus. It's just whether or not it's directly from the nav bar, or you have to go to your course admin panel to get there. But once you're in Quick Eval, there are a couple different ways to view Quick Eval. First, you can look at it by submissions. I find it's most helpful for me to look at it by activity. And the reason why is then it organizes them by the type of gradable activity. You can see some gauges that help you understand how many submissions have been made, etc. Over on the right-hand side in Quick Eval, you might notice an ellipses. And this allows us to see the link to the multi-course quick eval. I'm not going to click on this only because I'm teaching courses this semester and those would show up, and I don't want to show you my actual course content here today. But clicking on that would show you all of the different courses and then all of the different gradable activities that need your attention there. Also from here, you can see dismissed activities. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. You can also filter by activity name. You can search for an activity if it's not popping off the page at you, etc. As you scroll down, you'll notice that you have these bars, and these kind of indicate an individual gradable activity. There will be the title of the gradable activity and the type of activity it is. So you can see I have 3 discussions here, an assignment and a quiz that need some attention here. In the center of these kind of blocks, you'll see if there have been any new submissions or posts, and you can see here that for my discussions, I have a new assignment submission as well as attempts on a quiz. To the right, you'll see some gauges, and these are really helpful to me in my teaching practice. I see that out of 6 students in this practice course, 1 of them has completed this discussion. I've evaluated 1 and I've published 1. Scrolling down a little bit further, you can see that my webinar sample discussion, assignment, and quizzes have more work for me to do. I have 50% of my students have submitted. I haven't evaluated most of them, and I haven't published any. And what that means is publishing allows your students to see that feedback that you've provided. If you hover over the bar here for a particular gradable activity, it's going to change what you see. You don't see the gauges any longer. You see these options. And the first one I'm going to show you here is more actions. If I click on more actions, the one I want to talk to you about today is dismiss until. So one thing you might notice for this particular gradable activity is that I've already graded everything that's been submitted and published everything. So I want to clean up my quick eval really quickly. And so to do that, I'll click dismiss until. And then we have 3 options. So if you're anticipating more responses or more submissions, you could say dismiss until the next submission. I like to enter a specific date. If someone posts early for a discussion or assignment that's not due for 1 or 2 weeks, I can actually dismiss that activity from my quick eval until the due date. Or you can click forever if that assignment is closed and no one can submit any further. So I'm going to click forever here. And when I do that, it just removes that from my quick eval, cleaning it up for me, helping me maintain like a more strategic workspace here. If I need to get that back, by the way, I can click this ellipses here, go to dismiss activities, and restore it pretty easily just by clicking a checkbox. So here to do that again, I'll click on more actions, dismiss until, say, a specific date, and I'll say Monday the 8th at midnight. Or this one, I can dismiss until the next submission. So just to show you, have 3 different options to clean up your quick eval a little bit. The next link over next to more actions is your submissions list. And I never used this until Aline taught me something this week that, and she's going to teach you that too. So it kind of blew my mind. I love learning new stuff and ways to use Brightspace. So I hope your mind gets blown as well by that. And the evaluate all is honestly where I spend the majority of my time. And the reason why I do most of my grading from here is it allows me to see all of the students, to click through all of my students in the gradable feedback page. And I can, retract a 0 that might have been given automatically. I can see students who didn't submit discussions. Oh, I got rid of my discussion. I got to pull that back. That didn't submit discussions and give them 0s. So that's where I tend to. If you click on the new submission, this link over here, that's going to take you to that particular student's submission, and you can grade that. But for some of the gradable activities, it can make it so that you miss certain things. So like if someone didn't submit a 0 or submit a discussion, you can't enter a 0 from there. So honestly, I tend to use this button a little bit more than any of the others. So just to show you, I dismissed an activity that I shouldn't have. So I'm going to go to that dismissed activities list here, and I'm going to pull that back, click restore, and it's going to go right back there. And Aline, she learned it at the same time. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand the reins back over to Aline, and she's going to talk about how to actually provide the feedback from the quick eval area, and then we'll move forward. Thanks. Aline, you are muted.
Thank you. Like Jamie was mentioning, so here we are on our quick eval page. And like she was mentioning, we have our new submissions, evaluate all, or submission list. So for this assignment, let's say that, yes, I could click new submissions, but I actually took a peek already at one, so it's no longer considered new, and I want to take a look at this one. So in this assignment, I have attached the rubric to the assignment in the settings under the evaluation feedback section. What that does is it adds it up here. So while we're grading, we can open this up, no problem. But in my mind, this is teeny tiny and I want more space. So we have this pop out option. Make this a little bit bigger. It gives us a lot more surface space to work with. So we have here, and you will determine your levels and your points, but you can set your points, and then you would select the level of achievement for that particular criteria that the student has met. So when you select that, then it updates the score. Now, let's say that this was up to 38 points, or it's a range. So we don't have to have 38, but maybe they got 35 out of 38. So we can adjust that, and then we could expand upon that within the feedback. As an FYI, you can also add initial feedback in the settings so that when you did select a particular level, say let's choose exemplarily, there's already automatic feedback that gets added in for everyone who reaches this level that you have provided. And in this case, great work. But maybe we want to be specific. You did a nice job here. We can be specific for that particular student. So we can make our selections. It'll bring us up to a total and then have an overall score. So I'm just going to select this for right now, and then we can close it. We also have the overall feedback section. Now your feedback should be substantial and supportive. And this will be displayed in the gradebook when the student takes a look. So when they take a look at their grades, there will be that small little section with feedback. However, they can pop open the attached rubric to get more details. Now, as you're going through, let's say that something, you wanted to change something. Maybe you went through, you reconsidering how you worded, whatever the situation is. You have the option, it's the three horizontal dots, the meatball menu, and you can clear the selections. So we can clear this. Now it still leaves our feedback, so you would have to take that off. However, it does reset your selections. And there is also an option when you pop it out too. So while we're here, let's say I didn't just clear that, but I've given feedback in our rubric. We now have an overall grade. Maybe you have some additional feedback here, or to give a general overview of the feedback. You also have some other options. We have, beneath that, we have attachments. So you could attach a document or another resource, whatever it is. But we also have the ability to record video, and this will be through the video note tool. So there's this option here, and also under the plus symbol, insert stuff. And we also have add video note. So it'll get you to the same spot. So when we do an add video note, it might not like that I currently have my webcam on, but let's just see what happens. That's okay. It doesn't like that I have my webcam open, but I have a recording already. So when you record this, you will, let me just see what happens. We're gonna click around for a second. Yeah, okay. So you'll record your video. It'll bring you to this page. We wanna add captions. So under audio language, oh, yes, thanks, Jamie. You can also just provide audio feedback. It doesn't have to be video, which record audio, or as you saw, we can just disable the camera. Still want captions. So under audio language, choose from unknown, choose your language, and then automatically generate captions from audio. And then click next. And it'll give you a preview, and then you could insert it. I'm going to cancel this one. So I have my preview here. Let's just see what happens. Oh, it's very big. I will share my audio. Hi, everyone. This is just a quick example of giving feedback via video note. Great. So my captions were pretty good, but if you do need to edit your captions, you can do that through the gear wheel of like your main course page. Through the gear wheel, I have it pinned, but if you expand it to show all, you have audio video note editor or media library, where you can also find the object. So here I'm under media library. We can edit it here. And here would be the closed captions that we can adjust. So of course, we just want to make sure that those are accurate. And then it would be provided and students can check it out. Some other features that you might find helpful are the annotation tools. So in this case, the student submitted a Word document. It will also work with PDFs and images, where when you have the preview come up, move this over, you can, again, I like to make things bigger. I don't know, small screens, we can expand. So we have some tools. We have some just visual tools, but also we have some markup tools. We have, highlighter. We have lines. We have comments. We have different shapes. We have text that we can add comments on. So this might be helpful to give inline grading that can be very specific, while your feedback, say in the overview or criteria, can address it or refer back to it. And if you hate all of it, then you can trash it. So once you have provided your feedback via a rubric, via video note or audio, annotations, text within the overall feedback, you can either publish or save draft. If you choose to save this as a draft, then you can publish all from either Quick Eval or from the assignment. So if we head back to Quick Eval, then if you were done with everything, then you could publish all. And I'm just checking, were there any comments in the chat to make sure that I touched upon for, thanks for adding the extra information. Oh, how does one initially attach and then access for editing the rubric? I can quickly show that if we have a minute now. So under your actual avenue may vary depending on how your campus has set up the toolbar and resources. However, you will always be able to find it under course admin and rubrics. I filtered some things here, but let me just get that. You could do rubric. And here's where you could create a new rubric. Once it's published, that's when you'll be able to attach it, and you would attach it to either a discussion forum or an assignment. In the settings, well, maybe it's already created, but you can add it in under evaluation and feedback. This wouldn't be here, and then you just do add rubric, either create new or add existing. And if we have time at the end, then I can dive into it a little bit more. But for now, I will hand it over to Jamie for grading from the gradebook.
Sorry, I was responding to people in the chat and I lost all of my windows here. So let me share my screen. So again, like Aline said, our go-to for grading is the Quick Eval tool. However, there are things that you're going to encounter that you can't do from Quick Eval that you need to come to the gradebook tool to do. And those are kind of few and far between. They tend to be special use cases, or if you are supplementing your course and your student submissions are not being made in Brightspace, they're being made in the physical classroom or in another location, you might need to come to the gradebook to enter grade values or make other adjustments. And so I've taught in 7 different learning management systems, and I'm going to tell you that this gradebook here is my absolute favorite. I love it. And the reason why I love it is because it has so much power, and yet it can be super simple. So it's going to accommodate itself to whatever kind of gradebook that you want to or need to create. Part of that, though, is understanding what your options are in the gradebook. And I have other sessions and I have other materials to help you really dive into what all of those options are. But just to speak about a couple of things that you're going to want to know how to do in the gradebook, I'm going to cover those today. So one of the things that as a faculty member, I miss about being face-to-face is that you don't get an opportunity to reflect on assignments like overall, the holistic thing. Like you get to see an individual's response and then you get to share feedback with that individual. But it's harder to find a place where you can provide that feedback to the entire class, where it's going to be about everybody's performance, so it's not personalized in any way, and yet kind of closes that loop, to use business vernacular, about the learning experience. And so I want to show you here in the gradebook, and it doesn't matter if you're in the spreadsheet view or otherwise, you have the same option here. So here I'm in the spreadsheet view. I was in the standard view. It won't matter which view you're in. But say, for example, you have a discussion, and please forgive my scroll. I have a lot of stuff in my practice gradebook here. So say it's this 9:30 discussion. I can click this chevron or the drop-down menu icon, and I can click into Enter Grades. What that's going to do is pull up the gradable information for all of my students, etc. This little hidden toggle here, which says show details and overall feedback, if you click that little triangle toggle, it's going to give you a little bit more information about that particular gradable item, and it's going to give you this overall feedback. This feedback, by the way, it's really important to understand, is visible to everybody. It's not like this individual feedback that you would provide to a student or the feedback that you would provide in the text box that Aline was just showing you from Quick Eval. This will present itself right next to individual feedback, but for every single student on the roster. So say I want to, I noticed, oh my goodness, noticed some themes this week in our discussion, right? And you can talk about the themes, you could talk about the things that people seem to really grasp onto and understand. You could also talk about some muddy points where people were, you notice some people were posting incorrect responses or had misidentified something, etc. You also have the ability to do a video note here as well. So if you wanted to provide that video or audio note to all of your students at the same time, you would be well on your way to providing that overall feedback. So that's a great way to let everybody in the class know the overall, especially on like assignments or quizzes where students in the discussion, they're at least seeing what the other students are posting, but for the assignments, they might not understand how they're performing relative to others. And you could just say, you know, a lot of people understood this, a lot of people misunderstood this, and that might help students be like, oh, phew, I'm not the only one who didn't get it. So that overall feedback is a great thing to use. From here as well, if you have, say, for example, an assignment that is a yes or no, it's a you either get credit or you don't get credit, and you've already graded all of the students who did, you have the ability to submit multiple grades at the same time for multiple students. So let me show you again. You go to the chevron next to whichever gradable activity in the gradebook that you're looking at, and you click Enter Grades. And it brings up that same page. I'm going to close this toggle right here because right here, you might notice that none of my students submitted this assignment. So I could click on this little button right here. It's going to select every single student. I click the link here that says Set Grades, and I can give everybody a 0, or I can give everybody a 100. And click Save, and it's going to apply that grade for everybody. So this might be helpful if you're saying, okay, is everybody here today? Yes, give everybody a 100, and then maybe demo Tamara wasn't there, so I can give her a 0. And that it saves me from having to enter 100, 100, 0, 100. It does save a lot of time. You can also reset that. If you had done that, everybody selected, you could clear those grades. You're also able to add feedback in bulk too. So you could say something like student submitted assignment in class, right? Click Save, and that's going to go into the feedback for everybody right there. What you can also do from this page is you can exempt or unexempt users. So if you use groups in your courses and you notice that you have trouble remembering which students in which group, so you maybe gave a 0 to somebody accidentally because they didn't submit in this one column, it was for another column. This is a way for you to exempt or unexempt in those strategically. Or if you have a student who maybe had an accommodation and needed to submit or a different type of gradable activity, you can exempt them from this and have them unexempted from another column, etc. So it's a really nice way to do things in bulk. Also, if I wanted to, I could select the multiple people who got 0s and grade them or email them right from here. So I don't have to go to the email tool and remember all the students. I can do that all right from here. So I'm going to click Save and Close there. All right. The next thing I wanted to show you about the gradebook is to view by students. And so this has been helpful to me if I had a student who submitted a bulk amount of work all at one time. I had one student who was out for 4 weeks with COVID. They were very ill, and when they finally came back, they submitted all of their work kind of in bulk. And rather than going to Quick Eval and having to click through each single one of those boxes, I actually came to the student and I clicked from here. Nope, I just clicked their name, sorry. I click their name, and that brings up this kind of information about the student where I can see their final adjusted grade. I can see and grade their submission from here. So if I click on that, it's going to open up the activity evaluation page for just that student for that attempt. I could give them a grade here, etc. So this is a really helpful, sorry. This is a really helpful way for grading one student when they've submitted a whole bunch of stuff. It's also helpful, say for example, you have a student who comes in and wants to chat about that. You can pull this page up or the class progress page if you wanted to, but this is a helpful page by there. All right. Yes. So the last thing I wanted to show you is if you have that same little chevron that's above a gradable activities, if you are teaching a blended or a hybrid course, or you are teaching a fully face-to-face course, you can still use the gradebook even if they're not submitting to Brightspace. So they're not submitting discussions, assignments, or quizzes here. All of that grading can be done from this chevron. It doesn't have to exist in the actual content area or gradable activities area. Other than that, yes. So I think next I'm going to switch back over to Aline, and she's going to talk about grading from the actual activity area itself. So you can notice that we're putting our order of operations. We prefer and recommend grading from Quick Eval. The next default is grade from gradebook, and then the final option is to grade from the activity area itself.
Which I will show briefly, but I actually will jump back over to Quick Eval. So
To show you the amazing tool I learned about this week.
Okay, so as a refresher, we are back on our homepage, and to grade from the individual activities, we can head up to our course activities. Again, your location may vary. And we can go into the individual objects, discussions, assignments, and quizzes. Each one is similar, but slightly. So if we're talking about discussions, or if we want to grade our discussion, this would be our forum, but this sample discussion would be the topic that we want to grade. So you would click the down arrow chevron and choose Assess Topic. And then from here, we can either choose a student or we could go through this route. We're going to go through users. And that brings us to, we'll choose somebody. And that will bring us to our familiar page where we can see the students' posts. So the individual, this person did several. We can see all of them together. We have our rubric attached. We added that in the settings. We can go through and fill that out, add feedback, and either publish or save. So that's for discussions. And it's similar for assignments. We'll head over into assignments. We can choose our sample assignment, down arrow chevron. And in this case, we have view submissions. We have a similar layout. We can do either go by user or by submission. So if we only want to take a look at things that have been submitted, we have a shorter list. And we can click into that. And again, it's our same familiar page where we can add in feedback, however we feel is best. And then lastly, we have our quizzes. Once it loads. So for our quizzes, yet again, we can choose our quiz, click the down arrow chevron, and in this case, our option is to grade. And here we can go through either our users or attempts. If you have more than one attempt for a student, then you can choose which one to take a peek at. Now, this is one way to go about it, but we're going to bring it back to Quick Eval because that is easier and it has fewer clicks. So if we take a look at Quick Eval, just for this example, we have our quiz. In this quiz, there is a written response. So it's a short answer and it requires manual grading. If we want to grade individual students, we can go to new attempts. We could do evaluate all. That will be all submissions, not all students. So you'd have to separately add zeros, but we'll go with new attempts just to demonstrate for right now. Once again, this brings us to a familiar page. Now, from the top here, if it lands on this completion summary, it might not look like much, but from this drop-down, we'll want to choose an attempt. Now, if your quiz has 50 questions, there's a lot on there, maybe you want to filter that down just to the ones that require manual grading. So this filter option, we have pending evaluation. We select that, and here we have our question that requires a written response. Here's the response, and we can give it a score and then add our feedback in this small area. The attempt feedback will be for the whole attempt, but here is just for this question. Again, we can either publish or save. So this is good for an individual student, but if we're grading all of the students for this one written response, then the quicker option, we're back at Quick Eval. If we jump over to submission list, when we choose this, it actually brings you to the activity, the quiz activity, but here, the questions tab will let you go from the question first instead of the student first. So here's our written response question. So now, I have all my students? Yes. So now I have all my students' responses just for this one written response. And then I can go in and provide a score, provide feedback for each student. And then when I save, I will have to go back and publish all either from the submissions or the Quick Eval, just because it saves and it saves here, we have to publish separately. So that is the, and this was what I just learned by clicking around. So I hope that you find it helpful. And I think that now brings us to, I do see some questions in the chat, but we are at the point of scenarios. Jamie, what would you like to take a look at first?
Okay, so I did organize in our outline the ones that came first. So I reorganized that completely. So I'm going to reference that and I'm going to share my screen if that's all right. And go from that page. So the one that kind of hit the top there was gradebook setup or troubleshooting issues in your gradebook. And to do that, you might notice, like, if you've ever got, I actually fixed this beforehand. I shouldn't have. I should have. Hold please while I edit this. You might notice a giant red note here that says, hey, your final calculated grade is summing to 120%, not 100%. Or you might notice some other note that your gradebook is providing you saying, hey, I am set up wrong, please help me. And sometimes there's more than one issue and it will give you a little list of those things. So if you ever notice a note there, it's probably something you want to pay attention to, and you could reach out to your instructional design team on your campus, or if you subscribe to the help desk, you can reach out to them. They are well versed in gradebook issues and can help you troubleshoot that. But honestly, when I encounter a gradebook issue on my own, or I'm working with a faculty member and they've identified they're having some issues, the place where I go is not the Enter Grades tab here in the grades area. It's actually to the Manage Grades page. And the reason why is this page will allow me to see in table form, in list form, all of the different gradable activities I have in there. I can determine if I'm using a weighted gradebook or a points-based gradebook, and I can do a lot of the remediation right from this page. And this is a very well used gradebook. I've been using this for years to train in Brightspace, so please forgive the length and complexity of this particular gradebook. But from here, understanding what you can do from the Manage Grades tab of your gradebook is important. You have the ability to create new items, which is gradable activities or columns in your gradebook. These would exist outside of content that you've created in your gradable activities area and linked to the gradebook. These would be standalone items. Maybe it's for something, maybe it's a calculated column that you're going to say, how did they do on these 3 quizzes? And you're going to average across that. Whatever you want to do, you have ways to do that with these items. The categories are used if you're either trying to organize your gradebook for a points-based gradebook, or you can use them to establish a weighted gradebook by creating categories that have a particular allocation of percentages for that overall gradebook. In the more actions, you have the ability to reorder. So if you have, categories and you created participation first, but you really want discussions to appear first in your gradebook, you can move categories around. You can move items within categories around this way. So if I click on that reorder link right there, you have the ability to say, I want quizzes to be the second category in my gradebook, and click save. And that's going to move discussions, I think, which was the second assignments, the second category up to the first, and move quizzes to the second. So that reorder can be very, very helpful for you. It can also be helpful because when the students look at this in class progress or grades, they're going to see a list of things. And so you can reorder things so that they're organized next to each other, etc. You can view an event log. So if you are co-teaching and something has gone catastrophically wrong with your gradebook, you can see what has happened in that gradebook. So can the help desk, and they can help you troubleshoot that as well. You can make columns visible or invisible to students. So if you have maybe an extra credit that you don't want them to see and it's going to pop up at one point, you can make a column invisible there by hiding. And you can also delete gradebook items from here. The one caveat with deletion from here is you can't delete an item in your gradebook if it's linked actively to a gradable activity like a discussion, a quiz, or an assignment. You actually have to go to the gradable activity itself, break that link, by clicking to not in gradebook for that setting there, and then you can come back and delete the item. So it's kind of a 2-part process for deleting those materials. Now, as I scroll down a little bit further, I can troubleshoot this particular issue in that my final calculated grade is being calculated out of 120% rather than 100, which means when I did the math for my categories in my weighted gradebook, I did so incorrectly, or I added a gradable activity that exists outside of a category. And so it's adding its assignment weight to the overall gradebook rather than within a category. So to do that, you have a couple of options, and this is where the bulk edit button comes in handy. So I could scroll down in here, and you'll notice that the items that are within a category for my weighted gradebook, they're indented 5 spaces, and they're also in white versus the kind of grayish blue, very light color here that indicates a category or an umbrella, right, for these different gradable activities. So I can go through and click all of these categories. There's a lot, I apologize. I gotta clean this out. All right. I can click all of those, and instead of then having to adjust each individual category by clicking edit, etc., I can edit all of those gradebook categories at one time. I can adjust their name. I can adjust their weight here. I can adjust whether or not they can exceed their boundaries. And I talk about this in my gradebook workshops about how doing the can exceed allows your extra credit to be used more distributively across. Is that a word? Did I just make that up? It doesn't matter. At any rate, so I'm seeing here that my quizzes needs to be a 10. I'll click save. And now I've gotten rid of that error because my weights now add up to 100. You also have some options then, say for example, these 3 assignments. I'm going to place them, sorry. You might also run into this issue where you have in a weighted gradebook scenario, you've added assignments or quizzes or something, and they exist outside of a category. So now you're seeing that my final calculated grade is summing to 130%, not 100. And what that's going to look like is with this terribly long scroll. These assignments you can see, gradable activities rather, are not housed within a category. And so the weight of these assignments is applying to the overall rather than within a category. So it's really damaging the math of my grade book. This happens a lot when people create their weighted grade book and then they add a discussion or a quiz or an assignment after the fact and neglect to adjust which category it's going into. So I can actually do all 3 of these at the same time by clicking this and coming to bulk edit. And that's where I will add them to the appropriate category. So this is going to go into assignments, 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 and click save. And I've remedied the mathematical error, and now I have that. So understanding if you're using a weighted grade book, which categories control which percentages, which gradable activities fall within that category, and ensuring that you have the appropriate weight attributed to a point value, et cetera, that can all be determined from this individual page. The points-based gradebook looks a little bit different in that everything is going to be left justified. You're not going to have the indents, etc. And then you just have to make sure that each of these things is given a specific point value to total the value that you have in your syllabus. The points-based one is a little bit easier to manage, sort of, but I find the weighted gradebook gives me more flexibility with dropping gradable activities throughout the semester that we've run out of time for, etc. Let's see. One of the things that was a major issue early on in Brightspace, and not so much now because they changed the default setting, is if you go through the setup wizard for the gradebook, you do get asked a question here about, I forget which column it's in, I'm sorry, calculation options. This one, ungraded items, whether to drop ungraded items or treat ungraded items as 0. So this is a less frequent issue. However, if you're continuing to use this setting from the very early days of Brightspace, it's something you might want to revisit. A lot of the student feedback that we get from them about the frustration with grades is that they start out the course with 0s. And that's because the faculty member has selected treat ungraded items as 0 as the default setting for their gradebook. This means that from the beginning, the students have 0s and they get 100 on their first assignment. It's going to take them a very long time to overcome the rest of the 0s in the gradebook. And so they get the sense that they're failing all the way up to like the midterms. So what we do recommend you do is drop the ungraded items and then use this setting now, which is new and has made our lives much easier, which is the automatic 0 for missing submissions. So that makes our life much easier. Students don't get as frustrated or nervous about their performance in the course, etc. So I'm going to recommend that you make that change there. All right, so once you're done with those couple of things, just remember that from this manage grades area, this is where, say someone says, I can't see my grade. You might want to double check to make sure that the item isn't hidden, that it's visible to students, that there's no date associated with it being hidden, and you can do that from here. So if I had it hidden from users, you would see this I. So if they're saying, I can't see the grade, and you see this I with the line through it, you're like, ooh, that's why. Even if I've published the grade, they can't see it because it's hidden. There might be a date associated with it. This page can also make sure that we are associating our items with the appropriate category, that we have what we see here with the association is this assignment is actually something students are submitting within Brightspace. This means that it's not associated with a gradable activity. So this little hash mark there. And then if you have extra credit, it's listed as a star here. It's a bonus item here. So these are the ways that you can kind of use the icons to help you determine if your gradebook is functioning the way that you want it to. The next one on the list was adjust quiz points for all students. Aline, do you want to do that? Do you want me to do that?
Oh, sorry, I was just addressing a question
That's okay.
in the chat, but I can help if need be.
That's okay. All right, so I'll just do it here. For this one, it's how do you adjust the quiz points for all students? So you have a couple different ways that you can do that. You can do that from the gradebook tool itself, from the enter grades area. So you can come here and say you want to adjust the quiz value, quiz scores. I'm trying to find one that actually has a score. So this troubleshooting quiz. You can come here and click enter grades and say you want to adjust this. This should be a 98. Well, we'll give you an 88, and this should be a 98, and this should be a 15, etc. So you can adjust the grade from here. But the other option that you might want to take a peek at is how are you adjusting? Are you just curving the scores, in which case you're going to do that from the gradebook. But if you want to do it for a particular question, you would go to the quizzes area. So from your nav bar, you'd click onto quizzes and you'd come to this page, scroll down to the quiz in question, which is this sample quiz, and click grade. And from here, you're able to view by user, attempts, or questions. And in this case, we're going to go to question. And so there are a couple different ways you can do this. You can update all attempts. So say, for example, you thought that this is what is the name of Jamie's mischievous cat, right? And that one is actually incorrect because hot sauce doesn't live with me anymore, right? He lives with my son. So it's not one of my cats. So I can come here then for that particular question and give all attempts 2 points. Or I could give these points to somebody who has chosen the next likely answer. So anybody who had chosen hot sauce as the correct answer gets it correct. But if somebody else chose Luthien, or Lewis as I call her, they would get 2 points. So there are a couple different ways to adjust the point values by question. And you could say hot sauce moved out, and click save. And that adjusts the quiz questions for the people who got the next correct answer, or you could just update it for everybody. So you have 2 different ways, by question, or in the gradebook, you can adjust for everybody there all at once. All right. The next one, Aline, do you want to show them how to retract a grade for a late assignment submission?
Retract that grade for a late submission.
From Quick Eval?
Oh.
I can do it. It's not a problem.
Yeah, sorry, I'm pulling up.
You're in chat.
Yeah.
Totally fine. All right, so the next question was, what happens if you have an assignment that's submitted or that already got feedback? And so if you'll recall in that gradebook troubleshooting section, I was talking about how you drop ungraded items, but then you click the give submissions submitted to an assignment after the due date, an automatic 0. So one of the problems with that then is if you go to grade and someone has a late submission, which I'm pretty sure we tried to do that. Well, she was 12 hours late. Hold please while I do this. So say, for example, Tamara submitted her work and you'll see it was 12 hours late and that setting was clicked, she would get a 0. Before I can, sorry. Before I can grade her, even though I'm accepting late work with like a 10% deduction, etc. Before I can provide any feedback for her, I have to retract that grade that Brightspace gave to her automatically. So as I'm clicking through my students here, these two submitted on time and Tamara submitted late, but she got a 0. So I have to retract that grade here. And it will say evaluation retracted. And now I'll be able to adjust that score based off of her performance there. So let's say she got what, an 88, but not an 880 there. So I can save that draft. It's a really simple process, but you might try to type, you might try to add things, and it's not going to let you until you click retract. The same goes if you've already provided to that feedback to that student, et cetera. And I just noticed we're out of time. That went fast. How'd that happen?
It did.
All right. We did get to the ones that like in the poll were really high there. But anyway, we might need to do another one of these.
And there were some good questions in the chat. But we are a little bit over time, so I want to thank you. If anybody did want to chat afterwards, I'm happy to stay. But for now, thank you, Jamie. Thank you all. There is a question in the chat about finding the recording. So Erin, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure, thank you. Oh my goodness, it did go so fast, but there was so much great information. So I know folks are really excited to learn more. And your slide deck did have links to all of the resources that you were sharing. So I'm going to post 2 links in the chat. The first is to our webinar page, where you can see what we still have for this semester, which would be tomorrow. There's a session on AI and academic integrity. And on December 12th, there's an Oscar implementation session. In addition to that, our YouTube channel has all of our recordings. This will be posted there by the end of the week. And we are in the process of scheduling for the spring semester. So here's just a little teaser for you that you can look forward to. We have a session scheduled in January on well-being best practices incorporated into your course design. We are looking forward to Open Education Week in March. And then we have Enhancing Teaching with AI in March as well. There are several other sessions that we're currently scheduling. So once those come out, we'll send out an announcement. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to Jamie and to Aline for all of your knowledge and sharing.
And thanks. It was fun.
Thank you.